Welcome to the Diabetes Podcast. Today we're tackling one of the most important conversations in diabetes care, the myths and misconceptions that keep people stuck, and the scams that prey on those myths. If you're living with type 2 diabetes, you've probably heard conflicting messages. Some say the disease will always get worse, others promise a miracle cure in a bottle or a pill. And in the midst of that noise, it's easy to feel confused, overwhelmed, or even hopeless. But here's the truth. You have far more power than you've been led to believe. In this episode, we'll uncover the most common misconceptions about type 2 diabetes, what the latest science really says about change and remission, the tactics the supplement and wellness industry use to prey on people with diabetes, and how to spot scams. And most importantly, practical steps you can take without extremes, without gimmicks, that truly make a difference. This is about clarity, hope, and truth. Let's go. Hello, and welcome to the Diabetes Podcast. I'm Richie.
And I'm Amber.
And Amber, today we're talking about lies, untruths, some frequently perpetuated falsehoods surrounding diabetes, usually in an effort to sell you a thing or a product. But first, in last week's episode, we talked about sodium and diabetes, and I had a homework assignment to check up on smoked salmon, and the results, and they're not good. Anywhere from 600 to 1,200 milligrams per serving of smoked salmon, depending on the brand.
A bit much.
Yeah. So if you are trying to reduce sodium in your diet, increasing your smoked salmon intake is not going to help you in that regard, which is unfortunate for me. And now on to today's topic. Amber, tell us about some of the common myths, misconceptions, and marketing scams surrounding diabetes.
All right. I thought I would cover the most common ones that I see, and then we'll talk about more of the marketing side of that.
And to reframe, if we've got any new listeners out there, again, Amber has been in diabetes care specifically for over 20 years now. So if you're
I'm a little aged.
Yeah, if you're just getting into the world of diabetes and how to manage this thing, how to make this thing better, Amber's been doing this for a hot minute, and there's some recurring things that continue to pop up and to perpetuate really stuff that just does not move the needle as it relates to remission.
Yeah, I think there are beliefs that serve you, and there are beliefs that don't serve you at all. And so the first one is, I can't change this disease. That's something, there's an acceptance. Well, first there's a denial, and then there's an acceptance of, well, this is my life now. And it's just really such a damaging belief that once you have type 2 diabetes, it will only get worse, or even type 1 for that respect. Nothing I do matters. And that belief is absolutely, unequivocally false. So let's start with type 1, because I feel like we haven't given enough type 1 love in that.
Yeah, we're overdue at this point in time.
Absolutely.
I promise. We got a type 1 episode coming up here shortly.
So for people with type 1, let's just 100 years ago, type 1 was a death sentence. The diet for type 1 diabetes was to not eat, to a starvation diet. And wow, have we come a long way with automated insulin delivery, just so much great technology. And it's so,
Just clarify, you're talking about pumps, right? When you say automated?
Yes,
okay.
I'm talking about insulin pumps as opposed to 4 to 6 injections a day with the basal insulin and rapid acting before meals, to have a system that talks with a continuous glucose monitor. And basically you have this external pancreas that you get to wear outside your body. It doesn't have glucagon. Of course, it doesn't do many of the other roles of a pancreas, but it's the closest we have yet. And it's just like astounding. You'd have to be in this world for 20 years to really appreciate how far the technology has come in that time.
Yeah, and I think really it's in the last 5 that you've seen some really kind of tremendous growth as far as the capabilities of the thing, kind of the
Of
ease.
automated
Yeah.
insulin delivery.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been in the mail. It's been in the works and in the talkings for well over a decade, and now here we are. So, and have been for several years. So it's really cool. So that's for type 1 for sure. And I also wanted to mention Blue Circle Health, which can be found at bluecirclehealth.org. Blue Circle is an organization that is aligning to meet the needs of people with type 1. And it's along the lines that there's just so many more organizations now that say, hey, this is the problem. This is something that people who have more influence have said, hey, I don't want this to happen to anyone else. And they've started certain charities and certain organizations and some government funding for some of these. And so bluecirclehealth.org is where you can find that. There's only certain states that this is available in, Florida being one of them, and a lot of southern states, but also a few northern ones as well. But if you go on their website, you can see the eligible states and see if that's something you can use.
Okay, so that's a resource.
And that's for type 1.
Yeah. So that's a resource for 5% of the people with diabetes.
Yes.
Tell us about the other 95%.
All right. I was trying to give some type 1 love, like you said. So with type 2, you have so many like major studies like the direct and look ahead trials, bariatric surgery trials, Japanese cohort studies, systematic reviews, and this really clear common theme emerges, and that's the key factor to achieve better results with diabetes or remission is significant weight loss. The biggest one for remission is significant weight loss.
Well, I think even before that, I don't know that a lot of physicians, particularly general practitioners, are talking about remission at all with their patients. So if you're hearing this, and you have not had a conversation with your provider about remission, you need to talk to them. Chances are they're not going to be too optimistic. In the general population, this occurs relatively rarely. But if you want to achieve remission, that care provider is going to be a critical part of your remission story. So again, I don't know how you got here, but if you did, take hope. Remission is possible, and you're going to need to coordinate and work with your provider to continue working towards that goal. Exactly.
And it's important, the earlier you take action, the better. People diagnosed within the past 5 to 6 years have the best chances of remission, but that does not mean that it is not possible for other people, because it really has to do with the preservation of the beta cells. And typically people within their first 5 to 6 years of diagnosis have the most preserved beta cells. But there have been some positive results with improved beta cell function, with a loss of central adiposity and a loss of that insulin resistance when you lose, mostly by losing central adiposity or fat around the midsection.
And I think even for the people that have lost that beta cell function, it's safe to say you can certainly get better than you are right now.
Yeah.
Right. So I think working towards remission is still a good goal, regardless of whether you actually get there or not.
Yes.
Regardless of whether I'm completely off of drugs, you can certainly reduce the amount of medication that you're on. You can certainly reduce the negative effects of this disease on your body, on your organs, all of that by adopting the same behaviors that you would if you're going to work towards long-term remission.
Yep. And along that same myth busting thing is the whole idea of powerlessness. It's not helpful at all. And when you believe otherwise, when you believe that you have all the power, then you can make change. When you think that it's powerless, it shuts the door before you have any opportunity to make change and think anything different. So you don't want to shut down change before it ever begins, which brings us to misconception 2. When we talk about change, there's a common belief that remission requires extreme changes. And it's not true that remission is only possible if you make extreme sacrifices like cutting carbs, starving yourself, or doing a radical cleanse. So many studies show a 5 to 10% weight reduction can be enough to restore healthier glucose control. And then other studies use different methods. I think my biggest pet peeve, if you want to call it, with a lot of diabetes improvement studies is that I don't believe, in my opinion, enough of them use registered dietitian intervention, and even more specifically registered dietitians who are certified diabetes care and education specialists, because I think that's a very unique perspective where you're looking at the nutrition profile of people and helping them with the weight loss in the best way possible that really keeps their mindset in check, away from shame with food, like really uniquely qualified in that aspect.
Well, to be fair to the studies, the CDCESs out there are somewhat rare. If you look at the entire population and the number to spread around, there's not a lot of them. You take someone like yourself, you're even more of that unicorn that beyond just the education piece is also seeing the pharma side and seeing the device side as well. So to have someone as well-rounded as you, this is just my opportunity to sing your praises.
I think you're biased.
I am. But again, like it's how great is it that we now have this opportunity to get some of that out there, because that's not common. What's common is I see this thing and it never gets better. It just gets worse. And that's not the truth. That's common, but that's not all the story.
No, it's not the whole story. And the truth is, yes, diabetes is a degenerative disease. So all things remaining the same, it will get worse throughout time. And your job is, you, the person who has type 2 diabetes and wants to put it in remission or have better results and feel better and have more energy and better quality of life, is for all things to not remain the same, to continue to challenge yourself, right, to do a lot of the strategies that we talked about throughout the podcast.
That snowball is going to continue to roll downhill and pick up momentum unless it hits a rock. And that rock is literally you putting your foot down and saying, I'm not going to continue getting sicker. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to start today.
And at times it's going to feel like you're pushing that rock uphill. Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't mean that you give up. It doesn't mean that it's hopeless.
Correct.
And that's the overall message. Okay. And then misconception 3, I have to change everything overnight. The problem with this misconception is that it has the ability to paralyze people. It is overwhelming. It's not backed by science. This idea of lickety split, we're going to flip it 180 and do something differently. Like, I'm all for drawing a line in the sand, saying, this is it. This will not stand anymore. I'm going to do something different, like making a decision. Absolutely important. However, when you have this all or nothing, like, I have to do it this way, I have to flip the switch or else I'm just going to give up, you really do set yourself up to quit and give up if you don't set yourself up to win. And flipping the switch 180 degrees is just not a winning strategy. And I used to see this all the time, and I chuckle a little because of, I'm not making fun of anyone. It's just an absurd idea that you're going to throw everything out of your pantry and know what to eat that's totally different than your routine of eating and your habits of eating. But people would come in and they would sometimes reschedule their appointment if they hadn't planned it right, if there was some event coming up that they wanted to eat a certain thing, but oh no, I can't do this diet yet because there's this event coming up where I want to eat this way. Or they start it and then they're like, oh crap, what am I going to do at this thing, this vacation where I want to eat this? And so it's important to have strategies and to know what could be helpful going into those scenarios.
And I can only speak from personal experience. I think a lot of people are indoctrinated to, don't waste food.
Absolutely.
So it may not be it's not necessarily coming from an evil or a selfish place, or I'm trying to hide this thing. Being a clean plater was definitely exalted in my house growing up. I'm sure we've all heard the starving children in third world countries, argument to clean your plate. We're not advocating to waste food. It's just, again,
absolutely. I think anyone
is it worse to not eat 100% of the stuff on my plate if that means that I'm not even, I think we may have talked once or twice about just hunger cues and how we, are not trained to recognize them, how we, culturally just blow right through those because it's in front of me, and clearly I need to eat what's in front of me, at the expense of, actually listening to my body and what's my body telling me in the moment. You're much better at that than I am. I still got some work to do.
We'll keep you. Yeah. It is a grand idea to think you're going to toss all this. The issue can also arise when the idea of cleaning everything out is not in the trash can, it's in your body, as if those 2-month-old potato chip scraps need to go in your body. No, they don't. They are trash. Put them in the trash where they belong. It does not serve you or your purpose. So it's really about making these small, consistent changes that will add up over time for your success. So one thing we've talked about in other podcasts is just walking even 2 to 5 minutes after your dinner meal is one way to ensure that you're being able to take in the energy that you just consumed into the cells so that it's not stored away later, not shuttled over to the liver via insulin resistant pathways, So utilizing that, just swapping any kind of sugary drink, looking at one time that you do that in the week and where can you swap that out. Cooking one extra meal at home as opposed to door dashing it or eating out or going through the drive-through. And then my favorite, choosing beans, peas, or lentils in place of a meat source for your protein and your iron, at least one meal throughout the week. Yeah,
and I think we spoke about it before on the podcast, we're big James Clear fans around here.
Shout out, James.
Yeah. Again, if you haven't read Atomic Habits, you probably should.
Don't shut on people, Richie. No. It's great to check out if you would like to learn how to
I really
your
enjoyed
habits.
the book. I found the book very useful in my life and have probably read it 6 or 7 times at this point in time because it's that useful.
It's great.
But one of the big takeaways from that book is it's just that, any change that I'm trying to make, it's best to start out really very small, whatever that thing is. If I'm going from 0 beans in my diet to a half cup of beans per week in my diet, that's still a small incremental change. And maybe I try and get that to 2 cups or two half cups per week the following week. That's still 100% improvement week over week.
Progress, not
the
perfection.
idea is whatever that little thing is, I need to do it regularly. And I think that's where a lot of stuff gets broken down. I've worked in a gym before. It's miserable to work out in a gym in January, but February's back to normal because all of that, I'm going to lift all the weights and I'm going to try and do it in January, and that it just doesn't work. But, the folks that are there in February, and really the folks that are still there in like June and July, they're onto something. They figured out, what's going to continue working for them. And
that's a very small percentage.
That's not to say that, going to the gym is going to be a end all be all, but that is kind of illustrative of most people are not successful at creating new habits, regardless of what that is. And the rules for diabetes are still the same. If you can pick one thing and do it this week and do it slightly better the following week, that's improvement. And you do that 1,000 times, you won't even recognize yourself. That's kind of what we're getting at.
Yeah, not to be cliche, but small changes add up to big changes over time.
It's very much like, financial investment. If a little bit comes out of every paycheck for my entire career, I'm going to be able to retire. As opposed to as opposed to I'm just going to dump everything from this one paycheck and ain't going to cut it. That's just not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Misconception number 4. So this one's a tough one, and it's one that I've seen the aftermath of in many respects, and have sometimes been in the office with the physician in the conversation with the patient, where they're told that it's time for medication, and the misconception is that medications equal failure. Mm-hmm. If I have to take this medication, then that means that I have failed. And that could not be further from the truth. Medication is a tool, sometimes necessary, sometimes temporary, and sometimes long-term, but it doesn't mean that you haven't tried hard enough. It means that the body needs support. Early on, we did the 12 core defects of type 2 diabetes. So it means that some or all of those core defects are taking place, and one of these medications can work on anywhere from 1 to 6 or 8 of those 12 core defects, while you create the habits for change in the body so that you don't have as much insulin resistance. You don't have as much central adiposity that is fueling the insulin resistance, So you use it to help preserve your beta cell function first and foremost, because when we talk about remission, and we said this earlier, the first, 5-6 years are really pivotal in being able to achieve remission. The success rates are so much higher in that group, because oftentimes beyond that, the beta cell function is depleted.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, please check out our beta cell episode, where we go very much into depth as far as what these little guys are and how important they are in being able to long-term completely come off the medication.
Yes. And I love the analogy that you use about medication being scaffolding while the building is under construction.
Right.
The scaffolding is not meant to be there forever.
But it's absolutely critical during the construction process, until in the case of masonry and stuff, until that mortar is hardened and that brickwork or the masonry can support itself, the building will collapse in the absence of scaffolding. But in any kind of architect's elevation, the scaffolding is definitely not part of the external facade of the building long term. The idea is that the building needs to stand on its own eventually.
Absolutely.
So, to further that, you talk about failure. If you're listening to this podcast, I think it's safe to say that you have not failed. The most recent data suggests that 1 in 2 adult Americans are either have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. I mean, those are Vegas odds. You haven't failed. There's some bigger stuff going on here. We as a society have very much been set up for failure. Now, I don't think that there's some, evil guy twisting his mustache, somewhere trying to figure out how to give everybody, this disease. But we have to be very candid about, this isn't just this person or that person making some bad choices. there's almost uniform bad choices taking place
systemically
everywhere all the time.
And that's a whole other podcast. Like we could go into the role of capitalism in diabetes and the role of inactivity.
Yeah, don't personalize this, having diabetes as you failed, but also we have to be very candid. You are much more likely to be able to make change quickly than expecting the entire food industry or the entire medical industry or pharmaceutical industry to change. You can realistically start making changes right now. We as a society maybe need to address the others, but for the stuff that I can control, I can control what's going to go into my mouth this week, and I can start making better choices today.
In your movement. Yeah. Like if you're prescribed medications for diabetes, whether it's metformin, a sulfonylurea, glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor agonist, sodium glucose cotransporter 2s, especially like not even in the realm, like if you have type 1, which is autoimmune attack on your body that has completely wiped out the beta cells, you have to take insulin. That is nothing at all behaviorally that the person with type 1 has done. You have to replete what is not there in your organ system. And what a great thing that it's no longer a death sentence, that insulin, Banting and Best, you have insulin that you can take to survive. But in the realm, like mostly we are focused in type 2 diabetes remission and type 2 issues with medications when we talk about this misconception. But it's not solely a type 2 thing. Sometimes people with type 1 are just so pissed off they have to take insulin at all that it's almost like they're revolting against it. But it's like you're revolting against who? Yourself, your own health and healing. And to be fair with type 2, what I often see, which is very, I've been guilty of it as well, to be in full transparency. When people have asked, do I have to be on this medication for the rest of my life? Especially if somebody, where I have been guilty is in the past, if somebody had diabetes for 8 to 10 years and then they've been on every oral med under the sun and GLP-1 receptor agonists, and then they have to be on insulin because their beta cells are depleted and their C-peptide levels show that they have very little or no functioning beta cells. And they ask, do I have to be on this medication forever? The answer is most likely yes. If they have to have insulin because the beta cells are depleted, then it's very likely forever. But I think oftentimes, because of the fact that it's a progressive disease and because of the fact that usually every time people go to the doctor, more and more meds are added, then the belief comes that they cannot get off these medicines among the medical community. And that's the part that I push back on, because they're not used to people making change. We're creatures of habit. They're not used to people saying, forget this, I'm doing something different. And many people have that idea, they want to, but they don't have the support to actually do it. And it's very, and they give up when they go to the doctor and say, do I have to be on this med forever? And the answer that they get back is, I'm sorry, but yes, you do. And people want to trust their doctors. And to be fair, the doctors, for all of their experience, that has been their experience with 99.5% of all the people that they have prescribed this medicine to. They've seen them need more and more and more. So therefore, they give them the answer, yes, you have to be on this forever, when that's not necessarily true.
Right.
It definitely doesn't mean the person is a failure.
But we've also seen in people that we've worked with that when they start adopting the behaviors that can help put diabetes into remission, like the current dosage of medication has to come down.
Yeah.
Particularly if it's somebody that's on insulin, they start doing more activity. They start eating better, and all of a sudden they're having lows because they're being dosed at far higher. That's why, again, we really encourage you, like your physician has to be part of your remission journey. They have to understand that you are taking action to reduce your dependency on medication. The medication's going to have to come down and has to come down in conjunction with that.
And just to kind of flesh out what you said a little bit more is if you're somebody who is on 50 units of a basal insulin, for example, and you draw a line in the sand and you say, I'm doing something different, and you implement habits day in and day out to make big changes in your life, you probably will go low, have a low blood sugar overnight. Now, this is not to substitute medical advice, but the action of that long-term insulin is that it's injected into the fat, and the enzymes break down that insulin across time so that it works roughly for 24 hours, depending on if it's an ultra long-acting insulin, all of that. But you could go low because you got this constant supply of insulin whether your body needs it or not. So when you're asleep, you're not eating. Therefore, your insulin needs are just at a baseline level. But if your doctor has kicked your basal insulin, that baseline basic needs for insulin above that basal level, you could very much go low overnight. And I've seen it time and time and time again where people are feeding insulin, therefore gaining weight because they're trying to prevent lows. So you have to communicate to your doctor's office what's going on. And oftentimes, if the physician feels like you can manage your stuff, like you're covered, you know what you're doing, and you understand how the insulin works, they'll let you take it down by 10 to 20% every 3 to 5 days or whatever matches. So these are conversations that you can have with your physician. And if you don't feel that you can have these conversations with your physician, you may want to look for a different physician if you can.
And furthermore, to tie it back to the previous misconception, you're not going to change your medication situation overnight. It is going to be a progressive reduction as you continue to adopt the habits that allow you to come off the medication. We are absolutely not advocating for anybody to just stop.
Yes, do not cold turkey your medication, and especially do not cold turkey your medication and say on the diabetes podcast they told me, don't you do that.
No. When the scaffolding comes down, it's not the let me pull the tablecloth out from underneath all the dishes on the table. That usually just results in all the dishes ending up on the floor.
Yes.
It is a systemic dismantling of that support network because you have done the work to adopt those habits that enable you to stand on your own without the medication.
Exactly. So misconception 5, supplements are safer and more natural than medication.
I'm going to just say I would question the more natural statement of that just without any further context.
As you should, sir. You're taught you well. I see you know your judo well. Man, I'm having a proud dietitian moment here with my husband.
That's some classic meme throwback there.
Sorry. Yeah, it's often thought that supplements are more natural and therefore better than prescription medication. And the truth is, supplements are often unregulated, sometimes contaminated, and rarely tested in large peer-reviewed trials. They might, like if you see a supplement's got a little tiny study thrown in there, maybe that study has 20 people in it. I mean, rarely is it of any size, and you better believe they funded that study. So, a 2020 FDA investigation found dozens of so-called diabetes supplements spiked with undeclared prescription drugs, including metformin, and even banned chemicals. So like this one, oh geez. I'm just thinking, like, can you imagine if that you're skipping your metformin prescription because you don't want to take it. And metformin is pretty much generic at this point, unless maybe you're on the extended release glucophage. Maybe you pay $30 for your, but most of the time metformin is like free, $5. It's cheap drug. And you're paying $100 or $200 for a supplement that's got the same thing in it, probably lower quality, maybe mixed with some banned controlled substance like fen-phen, or maybe another prescription-ish, maybe like orlistat, like some fat malabsorptive something. But I mean, it just boggles my mind that you can put whatever you want to in a supplement.
And
as long as
make whatever claims you want about the
claim you want.
Because it's legal to do that.
It's legal.
Yeah, it is. I can legally say that this thing does whatever I say it does with no evidence backing that up. Mm-hmm. And nobody's
as long as you slap on there, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration.
Yeah, you might as well just repurpose that to be like, just believe me, just buy the thing, because
just trust me.
Yeah. So let me. Okay, going forward, if you know the actual developer of the supplement personally, if you've had a relationship with this person for a while and you know that they would not do a thing to personally, you really believe that they would not go out of their way to harm you, go ahead and take that supplement. And if you don't take that supplement for any reason whatsoever, because
who fits the scenario you just described?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Amber.
Because I'm like, what? Yeah, like
you don't know the people selling you this stuff, and I can tell you right now, the people selling you this stuff are just trying to make a profit. That's how business works.
Yeah. So along those lines, it's got to be said that the wellness and supplement industry, so combining all of wellness and supplements, not all wellness places are bad, but I'm just saying, you combine it all, we are talking about a trillion dollar industry. And you compare that against quote unquote big pharma that's getting all the bad press, everything falls on big pharma, yet I trust my supplement. I'm paying $200 to $300. I have heard from people multiple times, this is not unusual, spending $300 or $400 a month on supplements.
Yeah.
Yelling big pharma out of the other side of their mouth. Like I cannot wrap my head around it, knowing what I know, knowing that prescription medications are rigorously tested in thousands of people before Food and Drug Administration approval. But supplements, the only thing that a supplement has is independent lab verification, which means if I'm selling you this acai berry powder, let's say, and I'm going to pay an independent lab to verify that this is 90% acai powder. It has nothing to do with the quality of the acai powder. It doesn't verify the statements that I made about what the acai powder will do for you. It's just saying, yes, this supplement has 90% of acai powder. It's just saying what's in it is what it says it is. Whereas the pharmaceutical industry has to have it. And then they have anti-kickback laws. They cannot, if quid pro quo, that cannot exist in the pharmaceutical industry. And then there's also the Sunshine Act, where if you're really concerned about your physician receiving any kind of money from pharmaceuticals, which cannot happen, that's the kickback, that's anti-kickback laws prevent that. But you can go in, sunshineact.org, I think it is, you can go in and see what items of value your physician receives. So if a pharmaceutical representative went into your doctor's office and gave them a handout of a study that supported some fun fact that they shared with them, they might write that's an item of value of $5, and your doctor could see 3 people from the pharmaceutical industry that day. So they've got $12 logged that day. Multiply that across 5 days, across 52 weeks a year, maybe they don't work 52. But you can see how that can add up over time. And then you think, oh, my physician got $2,000 of money from this drug company, when they did not, in fact, do that. Most of that's probably in the trash. They didn't even look at the study that they left behind. I digress.
All right, Amber, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball, okay? But I'm going to really ask you to lean on your experience in diabetes care. Other than maybe a vitamin D supplement, is there any other supplement commercially available that you would recommend for people with diabetes?
Yeah, definitely. If you're the vitamin D supplement you mentioned, if you're in a more northern latitude or you wear a lot of sunscreen, don't get out in the sun, probably a vitamin D supplement would be warranted. Maybe some like algae derived omega-3 supplement could be useful as well. You probably vitamin B12 if you're over 50, or if you're a strict vegan, not getting any meat products or cheese or dairy, eggs, any of that. And possibly curcumin.
Okay. So I think safe to say, again, we can't control everything out there, but the list is pretty short.
Pretty short. And those supplements are pretty cheap. You can get a USP verified one very cheaply from your favorite pharmacy.
So that was, I think you said 4. Can you say them one more time? It was vitamin D, B12.
Vitamin D, B12, curcumin.
And maybe an algae-derived omega-3.
Omega-3.
And that's a maybe. So that's maybe 3.5. Three solids and one maybe. That's it. We are here to speak truth. And as you understand it from reading a copious amount of research about this, the recommended list is only 4 long.
Yep. And none of them replace lifestyle strategies or seeking medical care. If your sugars are 400, there ain't no supplement in this or on this earth
the list of 4,
that is going to fix that. It's not going to happen. So misconception 6 is it's too late for me. I've had diabetes for too long. And this is a heartbreaking misconception. Like, I've had this for 12 years. So remission or improvement isn't possible anymore. And so, while you've got the direct trial, which the study inclusion was only people who had diabetes for 0 to 6 years, which showed remission in about 46% of the study participants at 1 year. And most of, and we will talk about remission more in a different episode, but across all trials, they're mostly looking at that 6-month input because they don't want to look at what happens beyond 6 months when they haven't created the habit changes that would sustain that typically. But you can make improvements wherever you are. Absolutely, you can make improvements, because even if you had depleted most of your pancreatic beta cells, because by the time you're diagnosed with diabetes, the truth is you've lost about 50% of your functioning pancreatic beta cells through a reduction in insulin resistance, which is typically, not always, typically reduced by a reduction in central adiposity, where you store your fat around your midsection. That intra-abdominal fat, when you are able to reduce that, you can reduce your resistance to insulin, and you can improve your sensitivity. So you can reduce your insulin dose. You can help the medications that you're taking work better. So you can always make improvements, and there's nothing to say that you can't. So in people who had diabetes for longer durations, there was a remission rate of 2.4%. So I'm saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
It is low because most people give up. Most people accept their lot in life, if you will. Most people just don't know what to do. They're so flooded with information, yet not strategies and real change to make a difference.
Well, I think it's also fair to say, if it's just black and white, if I can't be off all medication forever, I'm not even interested. Please go find another podcast. Look, we're just not going to provide useful information for you. But if you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, right, and you are of the belief that whether you die in the next year or whether you die in the next 20 years, you want as much of the time left to be as healthy as humanly possible. You do not want to be in pain. You want to, sleep better and have more fun with your family and all that other kind of stuff. Please continue listening. That's what we're talking about, right? Yep. Remission is the ultimate goal, but whether complete elimination of all medication is possible or not, like reduction of medication is absolutely possible for every single person that wants to put in the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about this trap that people can get into within the supplement and wellness space. I know we talked.
So this is Misconception 7?
Yeah, okay. Sort of. It's just kind of moving beyond all of that to talk about something like you can't watch a YouTube video these days, at least not if you're me, because they know I'm watching stuff that pertains to diabetes.
Yeah.
I'm getting an ad all the time, and it's Dr. Gundry with some banana garbage, like, don't eat like, it is just
dropping names.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't supposed to do that. Anyway,
Amber's gonna drop names.
I'm gonna try fine. Not to, but it's probably gonna happen. Sorry. But I just want to dig deeper into this systemic problem with how the supplement and wellness industry preys on people with diabetes, and the strategy is so predictable. Firstly, they're going to remind people of their frustration or their fear of complications and their struggle with medication. And to be fair, sometimes when I'm talking to someone, or if I'm trying to get someone with diabetes to get their attention, I will remind them of their frustration, because change has to come from somewhere. But this has more to do with like this malicious intent of, you're not good enough, therefore you need to buy what I have to fix what is broken within you. That's the part that I really take issue with and want to anyway. And then they're offering this miracle, a pill, a powder, a tea, this special something from the remote rainforest that you can't get anywhere else. It's just this, if you do this one thing, that promises reversal in days. Like, that's to prey on people's hopes and desperation. That gets me big time. That gets me hot. I get real. Or to claim that doctors are hiding like the hidden thing they don't want you to know about diabetes. Like, I'm sorry. I know thousands of doctors. I know hundreds of endocrinologists, and there is no secret that they're trying to hide from their patients. These are some of the most caring, self-sacrificing individuals I have ever met. They are always looking to improve. Some of them jaded as heck. Like, don't get me wrong. Some of them, they're
throwback to our clinical inertia episode. If you
they've just seen too much, if you will. But it doesn't mean that they stopped caring, that they don't still want the best for their patients. So there's nobody hiding anything. And then other times they'll use fake proof. They'll have some stock photo testimonials that this photo isn't even anybody that's been on this product. That's Jennifer from Missouri that they got off of a different website. Or like with AI now, you can
Yeah.
create just about anything. These AI generated voices, even like taking we've seen the
we've seen
one
the
with
Oprah
Oprah.
ads, yeah.
Oh my gosh, when you showed me that, blew my mind. Like Oprah was touting something, but it definitely was not Oprah. It was AI fake Oprah that, like, I don't know how this is legal, but I think this is just developing so fast that they can't
I'm
regulate
fairly
this.
certain it's not legal, but I don't think you can stop it. I think it's happening too many places too quickly to be able to effectively, arrest that kind of stuff.
And it's not that this is causing no harm. It's separating people from their pocketbook. Like I just want, if you're listening to this podcast, I want you to think about across your lifetime, how much money you've spent on a supplement or a pill or a product that was supposed to do this. And then are you any better for it? Or are you worse for wear? I've heard so many stories of people who believe this, and then, gosh, some of the worst ones are people who had spent like $12,000 for a program that was offered by a chiropractor, and here they're out $12,000 and they're the same. And it was like this big supplement package and lab test that came with it. Like there's no special lab test that's going to just show all of this stuff. And we've talked about maybe a fasting insulin level and a couple of other things. And that's in the core defect stuff, if you want to look through the show notes there. But if it sounds magical, it probably isn't real. And if you're unsure, check with your doctor or pharmacist before spending a penny. And sadly, sometimes because the doctors don't really understand that, how big of an industry the supplement and wellness is, like they might be like, I don't know, you can try it, which is like, no, don't say that.
Yeah. So,
but
substituting a prescription for a subscription probably isn't the best plan.
no, I mean, your doctor would never want you to substitute that for your prescription medication. Never. And in fact, that's a major cause of hospital visits. And I've talked to someone before who stopped taking their diabetes meds, started taking these supplements, and ended up in the emergency room from this. And if the supplements didn't cost a ton of money, that emergency room visit surely did. And it's just, it is rampant, and it's a big problem. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm hoping that this will at least have some people think differently.
I would
around
advocate
this.
that the audience at large just does the exact same thing that I do, which is just do what Amber tells me to do. That in general,
No.
everything works out better when I just do what Amber tells me to do.
Well, see, you and I have trust established between us, and I don't know that that's, hopefully if you've listened to all the episodes up until this point, we've established some trust. But if this is your first episode, maybe we would take some more time to establish trust. But yeah. So with that, I just want to offer some practical hope in what actually works. So some evidence-based, sustainable strategies. We already talked about this, and I think it was misconception number 3. But when we talked about habits, walking after meals works.
Yeah.
It's proven in study after
I
study.
think we say this in almost every single episode. Just walking from we're going to have a future episode we've talked about on kind of what big picture versus small picture, and how a lot of times
the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
The news tends to focus on this one little thing, but really that doesn't move the needle. From an exercise standpoint, walking is really the biggest tool at your disposal as it relates to putting diabetes into remission. It is ultra low barrier to entry. It is no equipment required, and you can do the lion's share of the work that you need to do from a physical movement standpoint just by increasing the amount that you walk every single day.
Yeah, can't be underestimated. But then swapping refined carbs for some whole grains and legumes, that's a big one too. And I like that one, being a dietitian.
Yeah.
I like the nutrition portion of it. And I've said multiple times that you can out-eat any medication. You can out-eat just about anything.
Well, not just that. You can out-eat any movement plan.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Absolutely.
Yeah. Unless you're a seal in buds right now, you can out-eat any kind of movement plan, because that's about the only way that you can eat whatever you want is literally, I'm training to be a Navy SEAL.
Not a lot. That's a very small population that you just referred to.
And very low incidence of diabetes in that population.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Reducing sodium by choosing fresh fruits and vegetables or no salt added foods. Filling half your plate with vegetables and using high fiber foods to help improve that feeling of fullness.
Yeah.
And therefore helping with your blood sugar
Another
control.
throwback to the fiber episode.
Yeah.
That's one of the few things that actually kind of targets visceral fat. It, will actually reduce the amount of visceral fat that you're putting around your organs where it is most threatening.
The high fiber food.
And produces the highest rate of the inflammation. So that fiber, again, very common in beans.
What did you just say?
I said that the increase in fiber in your diet has been shown to reduce adiposity around your midsection.
And what did you say about inflammation?
That the accumulation of the adiposity in your midsection is correlated with an increase in inflammation.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. I thought that you said it the wrong way around.
No, I probably did not communicate it effectively. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. And the other is prioritizing sleep and managing stress, which are going to directly affect insulin resistance as well. Your stress hormone levels can affect insulin resistance.
And of the things that you've just prescribed, all of them are relatively low cost and, again, very accessible and can be integrated into what you're doing right now in small steps. So I think, kind of speaking to all of the myths, everything that you're saying does work. I think everybody listening to this podcast can try and do some of those things this week and continue to get better at those.
Yeah, there's nothing glamorous about what we just said. It's not packaged in a shiny, pretty little bottle. Yeah. It didn't come from the Amazon rainforest, which I think the Amazon rainforest is amazing. We need to, off topic, we need to keep our rainforest. And I think there are some amazing properties of fruits that are there that we could utilize to heal certain things. But is it going to be like, take this one thing and poof, it's gone? No.
Yeah.
But these strategies are proven to work. These are evidence-based, huge placebo-controlled, double-blind, randomized controlled trials showing that these strategies work. And what's more, they're within your control.
Right.
So it is completely something that you can take action on today. So,
and I think not just that, but when we talk about these things making change, we've spoken many times about the diabetes story being a 20-year tale of this thing kind of degrading and then ultimately getting to a point where it's going to require medication and hopefully, some less invasive medical procedures. The story of reversal is relatively much faster than the story of this thing coming in.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But it's not this week. It is going to be continually improved habits for the rest of your life. But the lion's share of that healing process can take place in months. That's not unreasonable.
Not at all.
But days or weeks, probably not. That is where you're gonna have to just swallow that frog and accept the fact that this is going to take more time maybe than I want, but it can certainly take less time than it took to get here in the first place.
Yep.
You know, we can get to healthy relatively on a much more compressed timeline, but that's going to be some work for several months, really.
Mm-hmm. Hear, hear.
All right. So this has been another episode of the Diabetes Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again next week. So here's the takeaways from today's episode. You are not powerless against type 2 diabetes. Remission is possible for many people, and it does not require extremes. You don't have to change everything overnight. Medication is a tool, not a failure. And supplements are not safer or more effective than real evidence-based care. Most importantly, beware of scams that prey on your fear. The real path forward is small, consistent, sustainable changes, supported by your healthcare team, not by miracle promises. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the podcast to stay connected with the latest research, expert insights, and practical steps for going forward beyond managing diabetes and working towards type 2 diabetes remission. Until next time, take courage. You can do this, and we can help.